War Machine and Tower Defense X is one of the most awaited towers in the Nightmare update, and it released with some pretty cool abilities, but I think in some parts it does have some issues. Sorry for the bad microphone quality. I have a bunch of fish tanks and it's messing with the microphone. Starting off with the base form and a few of the upgrades, it's pretty decent. It spawns multiple at once and has some pretty decent damage, but at the cost of an insane spawn time up to 40 minutes, which I think is just I think it may just be a little bit too much, because waiting 4 minutes between the spawn, that's enough time for nearly a boss to reach from one start to the other. So only one War Machine at that time is not really that good. And the thing is though, that War Machine is meant to be a spawner support tower, but the price is so expensive that it is going to be one of your main probably damage towers because of how much you're investing into it. So for it to just not be able to fend for itself with intervals of 4 minutes until it's able to get in, that can cause some pretty big issues. To be fair though, it is a support tower, so it's probably not the only thing you're going to be having, so it probably will stay on the map for a while until the next spawn interval. So let's get into what the upgrades do. The top path first upgrades just make it stronger. They add more damage, which is pretty basic upgrades, but after that, the design is kinda boring. The whole thing they did was just add an extra gun onto it every time it upgrades, and I think that they could have probably done something a little bit more interesting. I'm not necessarily saying that the top half design is bad, but I think that for a tower of its price and that the grind you have to do to unlock it, the design is pretty just the same thing from the last level, except they add one more gun to it, and I think that they really just could have done something a little bit more interesting. For example, top half has a rocket attached to it. They probably could have done some design changes to the rocket, but I'm pretty sure from level 3 to even max, it just has the same design for the rocket. And I really think that would be cool if they did something to the rocket as well, instead of just only adding more guns. Because not even the body of the mech itself is changed at all, which I think is pretty disappointing. As for the stats, it's literally just a Zen. It even deals the exact same damage, and it even has rockets like Zed does. The only difference is that it costs more, it has more health, and it spawns 2 at once. So it's nearly power creeping Zed, which I think is kind of an issue. And the thing is, top path is really just kind of basic, and I think that they could really do something to separate it from bottom path. I'm pretty sure War Machine can only spawn one group at a time, which means that it can only spawn 2, and then those 2 have to die before it can spawn in another group. And I think that one thing they can do to make top half better is to maybe nerf the damage and increase the spawn interval to be less, but have a second group. So there's not as many gaps between when War Machine is able to do something. Because that is one of the biggest flaws that the bottom path has, which would allow the top path to still have some use, because it would be able to do something between those intervals of spawning at the end of the track. Because if the first group dies, a second group heading up would be really nice, and that's just something that the bottom path doesn't have that would make the top half more useful. Starting off with just the upgrades names, it goes from War Machine 1 to War Machine 2 to War Machine 3, and these upgrades really just don't tell you anything about how the tower changes, and the spawn unit stats in the tower just also don't really describe much. It only shows the health and the DPS of the flamethrower, and it doesn't show, for example, the railguns or the rockets that are added to it, which I think would probably be helpful for when you're breaking into the tower and trying to understand how it works, which would be really helpful to have these stats shown. Now, talking about the spawn unit itself, it only spawns one of these, and it is really powerful. Starting off at War Machine 1, this is able to punch enemies back, and it has a flamethrower attack as well as a stomp. The stomp is able to slow enemies and stun them. The punch attack is able to literally punch bosses back, which stun locks them, which I'll talk about later. And the flamethrower is really just a flamethrower with nothing special, which I mean, sure, it could work as a basic attack, but at the same time, the range is just too short to really get any value out of it before it bams to the unit. And the feel of it, like mowing down enemies with a flamethrower, the DPS is also just like not really good. And I'm not even sure if it pierces. But I'll talk about how I think it can be improved after I talked about the other abilities it had. War Machine 2, an upgrade that is even more expensive, at nearly 200,000, adds rockets and more health and more damage. Now, the rockets are pretty cool, and it's just rockets and more damage. I can't really say much about it, but I think it is pretty helpful to have another attack, especially one that's able to deal with enemies from distance. The last level is War Machine 3, which adds 65,000 health and 3,000 damage to the flamethrower, but adds 20 seconds to spawn. This level costs over $1 million, and I'm gonna be honest, I just don't think it's worth it, especially compared to the previous levels. This costs $1 million. I'm pretty sure it triples, maybe quadruples the price. But the only thing it adds is railguns, which I'm pretty sure they deal less damage than the rockets. Because I remember playing a boss and I saw the rockets melt his health, and the railguns just did barely nothing compared to the rockets. And for that to quadruple the price really isn't worth it. And I get that it adds a lot more money. I mean, a lot more health, but that being said, it also adds a lot more time to spawn, and this tower already has the other abilities, such as the punch and everything else, so I really think that the bomb path max level will definitely need some sort of buff to make the $1 million truly worth it compared to the previous levels. I think that it could definitely use possibly I think the punch could be stronger because it's the max level and stuff. Now it may be stronger, but it's just not really a difference I notice in game because the punch stun locks. This is definitely the biggest issue I have with the tower, is that the punch literally stun locks, and it just, no boss without support or going invisible, which not many bosses have, will be able to get past this tower. So this is, it's basically just a one-shot. Eradicator Mark 1 combat can't even get studs away from the exit because War Machine just keeps punching it back, and I think that this is a pretty big issue. Because any boss that doesn't have these specific abilities, either go invisible, which can be countered by support towers making them invisible, spawning hordes to distract War Machine or possibly kill it, which again, not every boss is going to have ability to summon, especially in summon right in front of it to block War Machine. And the third is to just kill War Machine itself, which not all bosses are really able to target War Machine. So a decent chunk of bosses are just gonna get killed by War Machine because they just can't counter it at all. So it's basically just a free win button by the time you get the third upgrade, because that's when it unlocks the punch. This punch turns War Machine from a support tower to, it's not even just a support tower, it's literally just basically a free win button, except if bosses have a certain condition, which one of them can just be bypassed by something like helicopter or laser gunner. And I think that this is a huge issue, So here's how I think that they could improve this. I think that they should increase the cooldown of the punch while also making it more powerful, as well as increasing the range of the flamethrower. The flamethrower is really just doesn't really feel as powerful as it can be, so increasing the range and damage would definitely make it feel more powerful and actually really good as a primary attack, while making the punch if the boss doesn't just get completely stalled or something like that, it would really only be able to punch once before it dies, which would still allow the War Machine to deal a lot of damage, especially if it had a better flamethrower, while also still knock the boss back and stunning it with its stomp. And I feel like this would definitely make War Machine feel more like a support tower, like it's supposed to, by keeping the boss having dealt a bunch of damage to it and definitely delaying its progress, instead of it just stun locking the boss, which I think is kind of really unfair, especially if the boss doesn't have one of those conditions that just make it halfway immune to the punch, but it just gets stalled till it gets lucky rolling that ability and needs to break free. Another issue I want to talk about is the base. This tower is 13,000 crystals and is one of the top tier towers. And for the base to literally do nothing, no animations, no effects, nothing, I think that it is really just disappointing. And I also really like the concept art of the old one, and I hope to get a skin that looks like it. That being said, I still think that War Machine is a pretty cool tower, and I hope that the golden skin, as well as the update it's supposed to be getting later, really just makes this tower even cooler than it is. But I really think that top path is really just kind of boring, and bottom path is just way too much. This tower is just too little on top path and way too much on bottom, and I think that can be improved. But it's still a really cool tower and a really cool update.